Tonight, Trump heads to the G7 summit in France. Now, he's meeting with leaders of Britain, Canada, France, of course, Germany, Italy, and Japan. They're bracing for his arrival after picking fights with NATO allies and the past year's debacles on the world stage.
He is causing a major drama with some of the United States' closest allies. A tirade against the Canadian Prime Minister.
To say to the guy who leads the nation, one of our allies, Australia, this is the most unpleasant call all day.
He called Trudeau meek, mild, dishonest, and weak.
If Japan is attacked, we will fight World War III. But if we're attacked, Japan doesn't have to help us at all. They can watch it on a Sony television, the attack.
It's the moment going viral as President Trump shoves his way to the front of the line.
Pushing aside the leader of Montenegro in order to get into the front there.
Germany is totally controlled by Russia. Germany is a captive of Russia.
He took 2 Starburst candies out, threw them on the table, and said to Merkel, here, Angela, don't say I never give you anything.
We've been very good to our allies. We work with our allies. We take care of our allies.
Don't say I never give you anything. I forgot that Starburst story. Donald Trump enters this summit after a lot more of that kind of stuff. Some of it petty, some of it honestly funny, and some of it deadly serious. We have the aides telling reporters, apparently because they want somebody to know, they're worried about his, quote, erratic behavior. The flip-flops, the policy shifts, the head-scratching statements. It's all a lot, and it's adding up. Consider someone who has covered these stories very closely and spent time out in the country, including around MAGA crowds. Former Fox News reporter Carl Cameron, who writes that Trump has had an absolutely awful August, noting his use of racist, anti-Semitic, sexist rhetoric to bully a member of Congress, or, back to foreign policy, to bully an entire foreign country. Well, guess who's here? Campaign Carl. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Ari. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I know you try to call him like you see him. Some of our viewers might be surprised to hear someone who's been, as I mentioned, out there covering this stuff for Fox News, sees this blinking red for Donald Trump. What do you see as his problems here?
Oh, there's just so many. I mean, you don't have enough time in the day to make that list. But this particular August has been a particularly pointed one. When Trump's Congress, when the Republicans and the Democrats left Washington, D.C., the talk of impeachment kind of faded away, and we had a whole bunch of horrible things. We had 2 very, very serious shooting massacres. Mm-hmm. The president said we need strong background checks. And this is not the first time that he has made that sort of a statement and completely reversed himself. The business of going after Greenland amounts to a hostile takeover attempt by a businessman of some suspicious note, and it's essentially making an enemy of Denmark, which makes no sense at all. And by the way, while the president is over at the G7, he's been advocating for the last week that, well, maybe we should get Russia back to the G8. And the reason Russia, of course, was removed from the G8 is because of all the hostile things it's been doing to the West and the free world. The president seems to be supporting that, and it's gotten to the point where, thank goodness, August is soon to be over, and Congress comes back to Washington. You don't usually hear political reporters say that sort of thing, but this time around, it will resume the conversation that is really the most important other than the election, and that is whether or not they're going to impeach the president for the obstruction of justice.
You lay it all out, and I know you're used to covering more than one thing, and that's sort of what we do, because the long-term post-Mueller period is a pattern. It's a pattern that moved from a minority of House Democrats supporting impeachment to now a majority. And Pelosi's facing that. We were covering that earlier in the show. And then you have the backdrop of Donald Trump. How does he act in this period? Does he feel, for some reason, unbridled, even facing that and these economic jitters? And I don't know what you want to call it, unbridled, erratic. Everyone's got their thesaurus. But take a look from this week at just some of the things he's been up to.
Any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty.
Isn't that anti-Semitic?
No. It's only in your head. It's only anti-Semitic in your head. So we're talking about indexing. I'm not looking to do indexing. I've been thinking about payroll taxes for a long time. I'm not looking at a tax cut now. We don't need it. We can bring up background checks like we've never had before. We have very, very strong background checks right now. The Prime Minister's statement that it was absurd, it was an absurd idea, was nasty. You don't talk to the United States that way. at least under me. Excuse me. Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one.
How does that play? How does that play out in the world you've been in, and Fox News folks, some of whom still defend every last one of those things we just saw?
Well, I think that there are evangelical conservatives who are going to have problems with the human being calling himself the chosen one. But let's take a look at the kind of things that he has actually threatened to do this in the course of this August without Congress around. He has threatened birthright citizenship, saying he's going to effectively take on the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment and say that those who are born in this country will no longer be American citizens, or at least he's going to try it again. These are not new things. Everything we've been talking about are reruns, are repeats of the kind of lies and the kind of very unstable thinking and speaking that the President of the United States does. And we have to think about our national reputation worldwide now, with the President at the G7 meeting in France, how the rest of the world is looking at the U.S. We like to think of ourselves as world leaders. The President is not leading. So what are we? The United States of America's reputation is at stake because its president is being irresponsible and violating our values and our traditions.
You lay it all out there straight up, and some of it sounds pretty concerning. Carl Cameron, thanks for joining the beat tonight.
Thanks, Ari.
Appreciate it, sir. We're going to fit in a break, but when we come back, Donald Trump ordered